Okay, so this one is called The Nature of Victimhood. Now, victimhood it's very closely related to power, the topic of power, the topic of authority. So I've talked about this quite a bit in other podcast episodes, but I want to talk about this one specifically because I live in New Zealand, and New Zealand is a country that is going through a lot of tension and between the native people of this country, the Māori, and what they would call the Pākehā, which is the white man, basically. And there's a lot of pain that's coming to the surface for the Māori people when when the white man came to this land and did the usual white man colonization thing that the white man's always done. Just find another country, rape and pillage, take as much as you can. And I say it flippantly, but understand that, so I need to mask my shame. Because those are my ancestors, and the nature of colonization, of invading another nation and just taking everything. And I haven't figured that one out yet. This is a podcast about the nature of human beings and the reality we live in and that we're creating together. And I still haven't reached the point of understanding that yet. I know I will, but I don't quite understand it yet. But I want to talk about the nature of victimization because we all do it. We all need it as a coping mechanism. And we're all of us are on a journey and on a path towards self-reliance and, individual sovereignty and becoming, self-responsible as human beings, learning how to govern ourselves. It's a journey, and, until we're capable of reclaiming our power and our own authority and bringing it back inside our body, we have to first acknowledge and understand the different ways that we unconsciously give it away. And, we do it by mistake. We do it inadvertently. And that's kind of the theme I want to begin with, is the inadvertent way that we give our power away. And that's what victimhood is. And I know a lot of people, it seems to me that lots of people, especially in the self-awareness industry or community, they talk about victimhood, and it's, there's a shameful connotation to making yourself out to be a victim. Oh, you're making yourself a victim. Oh, you're making yourself a victim. And, I've come to learn that I don't really think people who shame others for being a victim really understand what that means. First and foremost, never shame someone for making themselves out to be a victim. It's a valid coping mechanism. It is a valid coping mechanism, because when the reality of the truth of a situation is too much to take responsibility for. It's too overwhelming. Victimhood is how we cope. And for as long as it takes, having someone to blame, having someone to direct our anger at, so that we're not just holding it within. This is valid. This is human nature. This is human nature. We have to direct that energy and that emotion outside of our body, because the overwhelm of bringing that responsibility back within our physical body, it's too much. And so compassion is essential. If you can't bring compassion to someone who is making themselves out to be a victim, at least understand they're saving themselves from a far more painful experience. But once they understand themselves, and once they've reconciled their pain enough, they'll be ready to take responsibility. Until then, a little bit of understanding goes a very long way. So the nature of victimhood, when we inadvertently give away our power and our authority, because no one has the power to no one is capable of taking our power away. No one's capable of oppressing us. It's always a choice that is given. Always. And the issue is that we do it inadvertently. We make these decisions unconsciously. So I'll give you an example. In New Zealand, we have a treaty that was between the tribes that were here when the colonizers came, and the gist of it is, all the tribes came together, the tribal heads there, and there was a treaty signed with all these terms and conditions, and the colonizers totally took advantage, took tons of land. The language barrier was obviously massive. And the tribal leaders didn't really know what they were getting into, didn't really understand what was going on. Nonetheless, the kernel of what happened was they gave their own power away inadvertently. So, you can argue that it was taken, but nonetheless, their free will consent is what initiated it. And they were obviously far worse off. And, the realities of this began to play out pretty quickly. And there were lots of battles and lots of, there was lots of slaughter and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't like some straightforward thing. So there's been a lot of blood spilt on this land, and, and in the schools, they don't really teach the real history about it. You got to dig to find it all. And, meanwhile, there's lots of Māori people who are in a lot of pain. And, if you know anything about DNA, you understand that pain can be passed on. The perspectives of our ancestors can be held in our DNA. And so we can literally carry that pain, in our DNA, and have unnatural reactions to certain things because of the perspectives of our ancestors. And the challenge we've got is that we've got lots of Māori people who are, they're really, they're taking their power back. They've given themselves a voice. We've got lots of powerful, young Māori people who are standing up and having a voice, and it's great. But the only issue is that they're not aware that they're still inadvertently giving their power away, because they're trying to blame the Pākehā of today. Not necessarily blame the Pākehā of today, but they want us to see their pain. They want us to feel it. And of course they do. They want us to understand it. And I totally get it. But the issue is, in New Zealand, is that we have to understand each other. I'm what they would consider a Pākehā. What they don't understand is all of the guilt and the shame that, many people of my generation hold because of the behavior of our ancestors. And what they don't realize is that they're really the source of their pain. The people who made those decisions, the people who came here and made all those decisions, yes, they're our relatives, the Pākehā. But we weren't involved in those decisions, and there's no way, we can't even understand it, So you've got, on one side, you've got the Māori who are in this intense pain. They need to reconcile the trauma. And then on the other side, you've got the Pākehā who are, it's becoming more and more shameful to be, a white man. I mean, and not just because of all these issues, but, many other reasons as well, as we know. But, and so you have this scenario where both sides are incapable of invalidating the other side's perspective. And when I say side, I just mean the polarized perspectives. And so the Pākehā have the sense of the Māori trying to blame us for their pain and for our privilege. And, it's like, in many of us, and I've experienced this myself, of, I even went to Polytech to learn te reo Māori, to learn how to speak the language, because I myself, and like many people like me of my generation and attitude, we want unity. We're very proud of the Māori, and we love the culture, and we can see the essence of their culture and how much it's lacking in modern society. Being disconnected from the land, and having no spiritual connection. It's all about commerce and da-da-da-da. And so we love that, and we want to bring it in, and we want more of it. And, now we've got the issue of cultural appropriation, and there's an interesting article in New Zealand recently where, someone at a university who's regarded as an authority on culture or something along those lines, talking about whether or not it's a good thing that Pākehā people are learning to speak te reo Māori, and that it's some form of cultural appropriation. And you just, no, it's an absolute bird's nest. And it needs reconciliation. And this is where I want to make my point about victimization. So, inadvertently giving our power away. So on one side, you've got people speaking up, Māori, who are in pain, and they direct everything towards the government. government needs to this, government needs to do reparations, government needs to, provide restitution. It's all directed at colonialism, and they're all trying to deal with, like, create solutions now based on choices that people made, in ancient history. That yes, we have a government in place, but the people that are in that government are clueless, totally ignorant to the past. And of course they are, because they live in the present day. They don't feel a sense of responsibility for what happened. And they never will. And so the Māori, and many of them, have made this enemy that they can blame and project all of their pain onto, and understand, listen to me when I say, I get it. I totally understand it. However, inadvertently victimizing themselves, when the reality is that what they're doing is they're saying that this power, this government, has the power to determine whether they're capable of reconciling their own pain or not. The government has the power to determine whether they prosper, whether they thrive. And in the same way, your average Pākehā is feeling like the Māori culture is being, it's a strange feeling. Like, sometimes it feels like it's being thrust in our faces, like people are trying to force us to embrace it more. I actually want to embrace it more. But then on the same token, you've got Māori who are trying to hold on to their culture and protect it, and not wanting Pākehā to embrace it and appropriate it. And, it's a real confusing bird's nest. Everyone's perspective is valid. No one understands the other side. People aren't evolved enough to understand that their own pain doesn't invalidate someone else's. And you just got, it's real divisive. Like, it's quite interesting to see like posts by the mass media, and they're deliberately stoking the fire. They'll drop some article and it's just, fueling both sides, and everyone just vents and bickers, and it's just never ending. But here's the thing. Why are they giving all their power away to the government, saying that only the government has the power to reconcile their pain, to reconcile the grief, the loss? Because understand, what they don't realize is they have an absolute army of people who are living now, who want to embrace the culture now, who wants them to heal and reconcile now. And we can self-govern this. We do not need a higher authority to give our power away to make ourselves dependent upon, to reconcile this between ourselves. You see, this is what victimization is. This is what it means. It's when we say that something has power over us, when we say that we're incapable of reconciling this, unless the government this, unless the government that, then we are giving our power away to that authority. They're not taking it. We've given it. That government is put there with a vote that we make. They only have power because we do not take responsibility ourselves. Understand this. Understand this. By making yourselves a victim and by placing all of the authority upon a government on your capability and capacity to prosper and to thrive. You're giving your power to that. And the only way to reclaim your power is to take back the responsibility. And so this is really why I'm saying it now, is because I see this huge opportunity, this massive opportunity for New Zealand to come together without including the government. We do not need the government to reconcile this for us. We do not need to rely upon them to bring and provide the restitution. Because Pākehā, New Zealand is like, we're a real fruit salad. We've got heaps of cultures here. Heaps of cultures from all over. And that's why I love it. I love it. I get exposed to so many different cultures, and so many different cultures inspire me. Like I bought a whole bunch of ingredients today to make ramen, like Japanese, broth and it's got all the 4, elements and components. And it's like, it's got the spiritual feeling to it. And, is that cultural appropriation? I mean, if you've listened to my podcast long enough, you know that anyone that plays the cultural appropriation card on me is going to, I'll express my truth, and it won't bother me if it humiliates them. No one owns culture. No one owns culture. The way I behave is based upon my perception of the environment that I'm living in. And if I choose to express myself in a specific way, it'll be, whether it's Chinese, Māori, Japanese, Pākehā, whatever the way, I'm going to do it. And understand that how much you're giving your power away to someone. If you say to them, you're appropriating my culture, it is riddled with fear, and you're giving that person power. So much power. But here's the thing. I understand why people are protective of their culture, and especially the Māori in New Zealand, because what they are masters of is belonging. They've got a community, they've got traditions. They create a sense of belonging, they create a sense of togetherness and unity within themselves, or within their own tribes at least. And, everyone wants to belong. Everyone wants that feeling of belonging. And so if something is seen to threaten your culture, then there's a real fear of a sense of losing your own sense of not only belonging, but also identity. And, when people have massive fear of losing their identity. So we need to understand these things, natural reactions. But nonetheless, if I'm interested in any language, I'm just going to learn it. If I want to speak it, I'm just going to speak it. If I'm inspired by your culture, I will express that culture. So here we have a scenario where history is just repeating itself. The Māori people inadvertently gave away all of their power to the white man, and a government formed, and we have what we have today. All of us are living in the present moment. We're all living in New Zealand. We've all got our own pain and suffering, guilt, shame, whatever it is that we're dealing with. And we want everyone else to understand our pain and to see our pain and to have compassion for us. We're trying to get everyone else to do something so that I can prosper, so that I can reconcile my pain. so that I can gain restitution. We're creating dependencies upon the decisions of other people, placing dependencies on our own prosperity, on choices or even perspectives in some cases that other people have or may have to make. And what if they say no? What if they don't agree? What if they're crazy? So this is what giving your power away means. Victimizing yourself is creating a dependency upon something you have the ability to create yourself, on someone else. So this is the vision that I have. It's just a huge opportunity for New Zealanders to come together and to claim the truth of who we are now. That we are Māori people with massive pain. Massive pain. Our ancestors inadvertently gave away their power. We acknowledge the truth of that. Yes, it may have been taken, manipulated, nonetheless. The kernel is that it was given. And so now it's time to break that cycle of inadvertently giving our power away, because this will keep going in a cycle until that cycle is broken, until the chain is broken, the link in that chain. It needs to be broken so that evolution can take place. And here's the thing, and I think this is one of the major things to be reconciled is culture, because you can't escape the fact that when you assimilate something, to assimilate a culture, it's forever changed. And so there's this real, as we come together and to create a shared vision of what New Zealand can look like in unity, we have to understand that in order for us to progress together, one people, one nation, under one law, and that's the law of the land, natural law, we can come together and we can understand the benefits of bringing in the perspectives of the Māori people into our society and our culture in ways where we can assimilate it with respect and with agreement that this is enabling us to progress. This is enabling us to become more, to become something else, something even greater than what we are now, than what our ancestors were. Let's be even more than what they were, rather than clinging on to what they were because we miss them. Because we mourn for the lost potential of what they could have become if what was taken from them wasn't taken, if the opportunities that they were meant to have. This is what grief really is. It's the spirit mourning the loss of the potential it had to become even more. Our ancestors don't want us to stay stuck in the past. They want the culture to become something else, even greater. They don't want it to remain primitive. They want it to be a building block upon which to build from even greater prosperity, even more unity, a much greater sense of belonging, an even deeper connection with the land. And if you're Māori and you're listening to this, understand, Pākehā want this for you. We want it for us. We see your pain, but we've got massive guilt. Understand this. In our DNA, it's very hard to look at and to know that you came from that we came from that. And, if you've listened to this podcast, I've got a deep understanding of human nature and I still don't understand this one. So we don't need a government for that. We need people to be a voice. We need people to be sponsored by all of the stakeholders, to be representatives and to share and to be the voice of those people, to share the perspectives. And we need to understand each other. This is my perspective. This is what I want for you. This is my hope for you. For myself, this is what I hope for myself. And I know that, now, I just want to look at this logically, because, it's all very well to say, oh yeah, here's a great vision and da-da-da-da, and yeah, this guy's talking about self-governing and breaking the chain of inadvertently giving power away, blah, blah, blah. But here's something practical. Because my expertise is turning a vision into actionable projects that will assure relentless progress. And this is how we can do it, is once we understand each other's perspective. That's the very beginning of the journey. I understand this. Yes, I see. I understand. We understand each other's perspective. We validate it to say that we understand why you feel that pain. We understand why you hold that guilt and you hold that shame. Of course. What can emerge from that? From mourning the lost potential of what the ancestors of the Māori could have become. It's not about the assets of money, land, property. Oh, yep, that's restitution. No, that doesn't heal the pain. The pain is the lost opportunity of what those ancestors could have become, the experiences they could have had. It's what your family could have been a byproduct of, what they created together. This is why when you lose someone close to you, the first thing you think about is, I wish I would have just phoned them one more time. I wish we'd gone on one last holiday. If only I'd said I'd love them. It's the lost opportunities of how you could have created and expressed together. That's what is mourned. It's not the physical body that's mourned. It's the lost potential of what your co-joined spirits could have become, created together. And so that's what we need to think about. What was lost? Was it land? Was it resources? Was it connection? Was it culture? Was it dreams? Was it visions? Was it the ability to be self-reliant and to live from the land? Was it the ability to be connected and to nurture the land? Was it the understanding of how to be self-reliant and symbiotic with nature and with the land? What was it? What was lost? I don't know enough about it. But once we identify that, we understand that, we can then initiate projects and say, hey, here we are, side by side. Māori, Pākehā, and everyone else that calls themselves a Kiwi. We're standing side by side. We see each other. We understand each other. We want to create unity. We want to create a sense of belonging. We want our culture to become more. We want to enrich it. We want our ancestors, their wisdom, to be utilized as a building block for what we can become. We've seen a vision for what we can become as a nation. This is what was lost. This is the potential that was lost. This is what how we want to express ourselves now, to become more connected with the land, to reconcile the pollution of this, or it doesn't matter what it is. But once we can envisage what we want to create now, and that vision will emerge out of what we perceive as the lost potential. And that is essential. That is key, because that's where the pain, that's where the separation, that's where the grief is. It's the lost potential of what they could have become and created. You see, what will happen is when you have people unified with a shared vision, imagine an entire nation. Government's not involved. These are Māori and Pākehā side by side, collaborating to bring restitution and healing to everyone involved. Everyone involved. And we come together. We say, this is what it is. This is the project. These are the skills and expertise we need. These are the resources we need. This is the funding that we need to reconcile this once and for all, to bring wholeness to everyone involved. And the solution is a solution to the guilt, to the shame, to the pain, to the mourning, to the suffering, and to the inadvertent giving away of power and authority that happened when the treaty happened. We create solutions now, and we leave the past where it was. We allow it to be exactly what it is, what it was, without having to change it. And we embrace and appreciate what the experience enabled us to create now, together. And see who backs it. See who backs it. See who wants to get involved. See who wants to give of themselves to a project like that. See who wants to be a part of something that powerful. People will give of themselves endlessly to reconcile this and to be a part of it. And so how can we? How can we? I'm feeling pretty inspired by this at the moment, obviously. And, if there's anyone that's, inspired also and wants to initiate anything, just reach out to me. I'm happy to provide counsel and to, use my skills and gifts to contribute in my own way. And that is as an orchestrator. And, just reach out with anything. Send me a message. My hope is that we can do this together. Māori, Pākehā, and all other Kiwis that want to see this come to fruition, that want us to reconcile together, that want our culture to become something even greater than it is now. If we're willing to allow it, the aspects of our own culture to be assimilated in whichever way feels right to the individual. Motuhaketanga. We're all sovereign. We're all free. Our authority resides within our body unless we give it away consciously or inadvertently. Let's break the cycle. Okay, that's it for the nature of victimhood or victimization, whichever. Cheers for now.